Initially, I planned to build a 100 square meter single-story house with 3 separate rooms, which is nearly the ideal choice for most people. But like most people, I didn't have the money for this 100 square meter house, and there's a saying,
"Don't bite off more than you can chew."
I decided not to bite off more than I could chew and make building the house cheaper by moving 2 rooms from the first floor to the second. That is, to make a kind of livable attic, which is called a mansarde. It's named after the person who came up with it. 4 centuries ago, there was a French architect named François Mansart who, for the sake of saving money, adapted the attic space for living and invented special windows for slanted walls. Just like in François' time, even today, no matter what people say about the cost per square meter, a house with a mansard attic is much cheaper than a full 1-story or 2-story house. For example, an estimate calculated on a house that was already built showed that at the shell stage, I doubled the area for just an additional 200,000 rubles. The first floor of my house is 50 square meters, and under the roof I got almost the same amount of space, minus the stairwell. Yes, an attic is an ambiguous decision, and every coin has 2 sides. I'll talk more about the downsides in one of the next videos, once I finish my attic completely. From a financial standpoint, it's a cost-effective solution. Many viewers commented on previous videos that building a 1-story house would be more convenient and only slightly more expensive. It probably looks that way from the couch, but here's how things would actually be in real life. I started construction with 1 million rubles in my pocket and a salary of 35,000 rubles a month. The initial money was enough for me to buy a plot of land, get electricity connected, bring water supply to the house, buy tools for work, pour the foundation for a 50 square meter house, and buy aerated concrete blocks for the walls of the same size house. After that, the money ran out. The foundation for the house, including drainage and a sand base, cost 250,000 rubles. All the aerated concrete blocks cost about the same amount. It turns out that if I had made the foundation for a 100 square meter single-story house, I would have run out of money at the foundation stage. And as you may recall, the following spring, all building material prices doubled, and for a 100 square meter single-story house, I would have needed to buy twice as many aerated concrete blocks for twice the money. That means I would have needed 4 times more than what I spent, and the money I saved over the next winter wouldn't have been enough to buy even the aerated concrete blocks, let alone the roof. And for the roof, I would also have needed twice as much material, which had become twice as expensive. And I wouldn't be recording this video now, already living in my own house for the 2nd year, but with a twitching eye, maybe just barely trying to move in, and there wouldn't be any videos at all, because I simply wouldn't have time for them. And I'm honestly happy that I did what I did. Otherwise, everything would have been really cutting it close, and the whole process probably wouldn't have brought any joy. If I had only built 50 square meters on 1 floor, it would have been sad too, because there wouldn't be any kids' rooms in this house, and I would definitely need another house anyway. But even just in terms of storage space, the extra area really helps a lot. Another advantage of a house like mine is the more affordable option of building it in stages. Each stage required an acceptable amount of money and was a manageable amount of work for one person, since I did most of the work by myself. You can build the foundation one season, the walls the next, the roof after that, and so on. With enough money, I could have put up the shell in one season, even alone. I wouldn't make any major changes to the house's structure if I were to build it again. I would just fix minor issues like the way the rebar rods were joined in one spot. They're supposed to be staggered. I wouldn't use newspapers, ready-made lintels, or build formwork for a bond beam. Instead, I'd pour 2 full continuous reinforced concrete bond beams in the U-blocks, as I did for the lintel above the panoramic window. Maybe I would add another lintel in one of the house's gables under the ridge beam, so I could put a window in the gable on the non-front side of the house, since during construction, the price of roof windows almost tripled. And I wouldn't try to save money on the windows themselves a second time. I would order the most energy-efficient ones possible, which should significantly reduce heating bills. The thing is, I borrowed money for the windows, and I borrowed just enough to be sure I could pay it back within the agreed time frame. Looking back, I now know that I could have paid more, but hindsight is always 20/20. If I had to do the heating again, I would still use electric cables, but I would just go for a higher power, 100 watts per square meter. And as for the septic tank, I wouldn't try to improvise, I would just make it out of reinforced concrete rings. And I would place it on the opposite side of the house so that the toilet drain would be the closest point to the septic tank, not the farthest like it is now. Other than that, all the flaws are just human error. I would plan the sewer and water pipe outlets more intelligently and add a couple of extra sockets. My house is good as it is. It's often easier to build a new house than to start making changes. Everything that could be adjusted, I tried to do on the drawings, and if anyone is interested in my house project, all the information is in the pinned comment. If I had more money at the beginning, I would have built a single-story house with 3 separate rooms, a large kitchen living room with access to the terrace. I really liked that solution. And I would add a utility room, a walk-in closet storage room, and I would make sure there were 2 bathrooms. I would use the same construction technology, meaning aerated concrete blocks on an insulated slab foundation. The only thing is, I would lean towards a hip roof with asphalt shingles, because it was really scary working with those gables on a ladder at 6 meters high. I might not pour the perimeter strip around the house in concrete, but use paving stones to match the future walkways. In general, every self-build project is unique because each of us is in our own circumstances. And throughout the entire construction, I do the best I can, where I am, with what I have. During all these 3 years of building, the circumstances have been constantly changing. And for those who are worried about seeing illogical actions, don't worry, it's related to changing circumstances. We've all noticed that in the last few years we've been living in a very rapidly changing world. And from the beginning, my goal wasn't to build cheaply. The goal was to do it well. And as you know, those are mutually exclusive characteristics. And for the sake of saving money, I chose to reduce the size rather than lower the quality. I tried to follow the principle of small but mighty. Actually, I wanted to make something like the most suitable house for most people so that others could follow my example and see if I succeeded. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. The structural shell of the house turned out to be really inexpensive. I got it weather tight for just 1.3 million, and at the same time, I did everything reliably. And how you finish it, and what furniture and appliances you put in it, that depends on the circumstances. The most important thing is the load-bearing structure, the building envelope, and the utilities. You absolutely must not save money on those. Everything else, for the most part, can basically be done with whatever's left. The main task is to provide comfortable housing for my family, and the house manages that even when it's not completely finished. Yes, having 1 floor is incredibly convenient, but only if you have the money for it. But around me, I see a huge number of unfinished houses and a lot of problems. People run out of money even at the fence building stage. And yes, I agree with the comments that the bigger the house, the less each square meter costs us. That's true, but as some pointed out, if I built a 1-story house, it would have cost 7 million instead of 5 million. Yes, it would be cool, it would be much more convenient, but it feels like after 1 million people stop counting and paying attention to the numbers, because where am I supposed to get those extra 2 million from? When you're sitting on the couch and you don't even have a single million, really, what's the difference? Whether you don't have 5 million or you don't have 7, or when you have 10 and you're deciding whether to take out 5 or 7 in those cases. Yes, in my case the most rational decision was a house with a finished attic level, but in your situation it might be a different solution. And what else should we talk about? Where I live, for example, there are lots where you have to build 2-story houses. Because from the first floor you'll be looking at a fence, but from the second floor you'll have a view like this. And that's just one of many reasons why a single floor isn't always the perfect solution. There were also a huge number of comments saying that building isn't worth it, it's better to buy a finished house, and the short answer to that is yes, but the long answer is no. The thing is, if you look at it in a vacuum, then yes, purely by the numbers, buying a finished house is more profitable. But when you actually go to the classifieds and see what people are trying to sell and for how much, it becomes clear that, yeah, right, forget it. And for example, in the area where I live, you basically can't buy anything because nothing is for sale. The only reasonable option is to build something new. Here, good plots or houses only come up for sale when something happens. For example, when someone passes away. And will such an option appear exactly when you need a house? Maybe yes, maybe no, or maybe tough luck. And again, I'll say it out loud with my own mouth using words. Self-building is not the most profitable strategy. This is Yuri, a self-build YouTuber speaking to you. It benefits me if you all build with your own hands. Because the more people like that, the more views I get. Do I regret building my house myself? Not for a second, and I'm saying this as a person, not as a blogger. Every ruble I invested, every effort I put in, none of it was in vain, and with each passing day it brings me more and more satisfaction. Over the past few years, I've improved my financial literacy and gradually learned about the stock market. In my opinion, the best strategy is this. When you live in a rented place, improve your skills, become a higher paid worker, move up the career ladder or develop your own business, and don't fall victim to consumerism, phones, cars, all of it. Instead of buying things you can't really afford on credit, you invest all your spare money, and in 10 to 15 years you could buy a house, maybe even more than one. But of course no one will do that because it's difficult and unclear. Even for building a house, I have a step-by-step guide on my YouTube channel on how you can build one. You just take specific steps one by one, but with these investments, nothing is obvious at all.
You make a deposit, great, very wise. We'll put your money into your retirement account so it works for you.
And another good tool that still exists today is the Rural Mortgage Program at 3%. You can get a mortgage to build your own house, even if you build it almost with your own hands. There are a lot of conditions, but it's possible, yes. Right now, only one or maybe two banks are still offering them. And another nuance is, for example, I live in a village. It's as rural as it gets, but I can't get a rural mortgage because my village isn't on the approved list. There's a list of settlements that qualify for this mortgage, and my village isn't on it. But if you didn't know, be aware that this opportunity exists. Maybe you can build in your village using borrowed money at 3% interest. It's a very good deal, it's very cheap money, and if I had the chance I would definitely take it. There are also a number of other preferential conditions like this. Well, for example, we don't quite qualify for the Young Family Program. We're kind of young, we're married, but we don't have kids. So from the government's point of view, how does that look? Like, you give us kids, we give you money, but for us, for people like us, it doesn't work that way. I want to get a roof over my head first, and only then bring kids into it, not the other way around like it's usually done here.
We'll definitely pay taxes when we grow up.
It's great that there are different support measures, and I hope they will continue to develop, because until recently it wasn't even possible to get a mortgage for building a house. As of today, even with some limitations, such opportunities already exist. I hope that somehow we will be heard, and that this whole story will really keep developing. In a couple of days I'll be at an event where all sorts of ministers of construction and such will be speaking, but maybe someone there will listen to me. I'm sharing my thoughts here, and while all of this is still in the works, they'll keep working on it over there. You can't defeat self-building. There are a lot of professionals on YouTube who try to fight against self-building, but it's just impossible. You can't eradicate it with any arguments, even the ones I actually agree with. And there's a rule: if you can't beat them, join them. And despite all these well-reasoned arguments, it turns out that building a house with your own hands is actually a very accessible option. How can you get your own housing in a short time with minimal investment and also end up with decent living conditions, not just survival? Because we've been through all those stories with communal apartments, dormitories, communism, socialism, it just doesn't work. And in my opinion, the development of affordable private home building has much greater potential for us to achieve a more advanced society. Honestly, what weighs on me is that we have this life, and it's actually pretty short.
Drink and have fun. Tomorrow you could die.
The first part, we're helpless children, and the last part, actually, we're helpless old people. And this stretch in the middle is even shorter, it's actually very small. And most of this already short stretch, a person spends just trying to get, well, some kind of box, where he comes, just to sleep, basically, to eat, to rest, so nothing drips on him from above, so predators don't get him, so a wolf doesn't drag him away, and just not to die. And just to provide ourselves with this thing, we spend most of our lives and do it with our own hands. It literally took me 3 years to solve the problem of having a roof over my head, for me and my wife. And also, already living in my own house, already enjoying what's happening, I still need about 2 more years. Because all these materials aren't free, you need to earn money for everything. It'll take about 2 more years from the moment I move in to add 2 more rooms on the second floor, where my kids can live in the future. Yes, I could have taken out a mortgage and paid it off in about the same amount of time, but I would have ended up with a 1-bedroom apartment in a questionable condition, like the one I used to rent. Goodbye, rental apartment. I hope we won't meet again in St. Petersburg. It's not just that I wouldn't have paid off a mortgage, I wouldn't even have been approved for one. With a salary of 35,000 rubles, they don't give out mortgages. And honestly, I also agree with the opinion of one of the professionals that there are self-builders, but not all self-builders are the same. There are useful videos and there are harmful ones. I won't put myself in any particular category. I have some nonsense in my videos too, as my competence grows. YouTube has recently allowed you to cut out certain parts from already published videos. Sometimes I rewatch and think, what are you saying, oh my god? So I tweak some things a little, cut out some really silly moments, but still, I can't completely get rid of everything. I might have made some mistakes here and there. I'm saying that I'm just a self-builder. You shouldn't copy what I do. It's all just for informational purposes, nothing more. I'm not the ultimate authority. I'm just a person. I can make mistakes, so always double-check the information, even if it comes from me. Before I started, I also watched a lot of self-builders and made a number of mistakes, some of which I regret. The fact that I leveled the walls of the house by the inner surface instead of the outer one was a mistake. Professionals always level by the outer side for a reason. I should have leveled by the outer surface. There were a few moments like that, but mostly just minor things because I thought I knew better and did some thinking of my own. Not in every case, though. The self-building tentacles were set in motion, but not everyone has time to figure things out, and many people just want to follow someone else's example. I hope they'll follow mine. It's not shameful to repeat. At least sometimes the advice in the comments is useful, but sometimes it's like, oh my god man, what are you talking about? A special place in hell? Those people give out advice about foundations without knowing the soil on someone's land, because let me tell you a story about how my father built a house. There are these self-builders who dug a trench in the topsoil, roughly 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter. They tied some little rods together, put them in place, set up a board, poured concrete above the ground like that, well, at least not right on the spot from the mixer, and then backfilled inside. They even threw some topsoil on top, well, that'll do. If I did something like that at my place, I'd lose the structure. As soon as I put anything there, I'd lose the structure. My soil wouldn't forgive that. And when my father was building back in 1991, there was none of this YouTube stuff or anything like that. People just acted. This is how our grandfathers did it. They dug a trench 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter. The house was literally here, 2 kilometers from me, with exactly the same soil as mine, now. They dug this trench and started pouring it with site-mixed concrete without any rebar. Rebar was used only for something more expensive. This kind of stone is called, at least in common speech, pletniak. And they would lay this pletinjak into the concrete. They'd pour some concrete, throw in some stones, pour more, add more stones, and so on. Actually, half of downtown St. Petersburg stands on this kind of foundation and has been standing for 300 years, and it will probably stand for even longer. Seems fine, our grandfathers did a good job, but the foundation just didn't take some construction subtleties into account. So they did it, spent a lot of time, their whole vacation, just to build this foundation. That's the kind of guys they were. We went back basically to the apartment to spend the winter, planning to come back next spring to put up the walls. So they come back to the site next spring and the foundation is gone. It just sank into the ground, completely collapsed under its own weight. Nothing was even loading it. Because the soil, damn it, is quicksand. If you start digging it, if water starts getting into it from the side or from below, it compacts it right away. And it turns out that it completely loses its bearing capacity when it's compacted. In its natural state, it can bear more than 1 kilogram per square centimeter, but if you saturate it with more water, that's it completely loses its bearing capacity. And that's why I absolutely couldn't dig. I knew this thanks to the experience passed down from my ancestors. And where do I get this foolishness and courage from? Well, it's because my father was like boom boom boom, scratched his head, so what should we do? Let's just keep building the formwork, add another 1/2 meter, pour it, and see what happens. In the end, we made exactly the same foundation on top again. It probably settled a little more there, and then it pressed down, probably squeezed out any liquid that was left, and everything else dried up. So basically the next year we could already start building the walls. In this case it worked out, but it might not have. But if you had just put up the shell right away, especially out of brick, then you'd end up losing the foundation, the shell, all the money, and that would be really sad. That's why you should never blindly copy what self-builders do in a specific case. Your circumstances might be different. Because some people build on rocky ground, some build in permafrost zones, and some have seismic activity in their area. Each of these regions has its own features, and you need to use different construction technologies accordingly. There's also another point. I analyzed both my own experience and the experiences of many other people whose stories I learned about. There are frequent cases when people don't want to hire someone to handle the whole build, because you have to pay a lot of money up front, and usually they don't have it. There needs to be some kind of step-by-step process so that it's at least manageable financially. And many people first hire someone for the foundation, then hire someone for the shell, then for the roof, and then they're like, well, I guess we'll just do the plastering and put up the wallpaper ourselves. And then they somehow try to deal with the interior finishing, even though the shell is actually only half the work at best. And with the finishing, it's a real mess too. As for me, it turned out the opposite. I did the foundation, the walls, the roof, all of that with my own hands, did everything as much as possible myself. That's what I'm responsible for. I knew what I was doing, why, and for what reason. And circumstances turned out in such a way that I kind of had to hire workers for part of the interior finishing. And honestly, if I had known, again, I didn't have money. If only I had money. Maybe if I were to build again, I would probably also do the foundation, walls and roof myself. Because it's actually physically hard but not intellectually hard, you know? I don't want to offend anyone or devalue someone's work, but personally, for me, it was much easier than dealing with the interior work later. Because it's kind of rough work on the shell, with large tolerances that are measured practically in centimeters. Then it comes down to millimeters, and then you have to look at crooked seams, uneven corners, places where the wallpaper doesn't line up, or the tiles are off. That's what I don't want. And in my opinion, it's much more rational to delegate this, and it takes a lot more time. I watch how the plasterers work, the professional plasterers, man, they're like meteors. Seriously, they're so fast. Compared to them, I'm working at a snail's pace. And with the shell work, basically that's where all my effort goes. They weren't that big. Here's my house. If you had a lot of money at the start, you could actually build the basic structure yourself in one season. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything here, I'm just thinking out loud that, in my opinion, it's a pretty good solution, and somehow I managed to do it myself. And the most profitable jobs. Because that's where they charge the most, especially for foundations, the markup is really high, and it seems to me that the further you go, the less profit the guys actually make. And the further along you get, the harder the work becomes. Inside, it's really tough to do the job. You have to work meticulously, especially with the electrical stuff. God forbid you mess something up. I really like this approach. I also understand that there's this thing where everyone praises their own work, and I try, at least, to be objective. I realize that I'm one of them too. I'm not saying that I built the best house on the planet. Not at all, I'm not claiming that. I just want to show it. Look, you can do it this way. What you do with this information is up to you. As they say, think for yourself, decide for yourself. I hope I was helpful to you. In the near future, there will be work on the stairs and finishing the facade. Also, I'm going to an interesting place soon and will bring back a video from there. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss it, and see you in the next video.